So hello everyone. So this year in Les Arcs we have this theme called on democracy, and this motto we found with which is Les Arcs, aux arcs citoyens. And we're very glad to have Tarik Saleh as a guest of honor of the festival and also participating in professional events for this panel. And presenting the Cairo Trilogy. We wanted to do this panel because we think it really makes sense with this theme, and we thanks Deadline, who is partner of the festival, and Melanie Goodfellow, who will moderate it. And I will let you introduce the panel, actually.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So it gives me great pleasure to be here moderating this panel. So we're going to be looking at how filmmakers navigate censorship and political pressure to create works that often can't be produced or even shown in their home countries and maybe even in their home regions, we're about to discover. So we're going to kick off the conversation with Tarik Saleh, Egyptian-Swedish director, who's the guest of honor, as Jeremy said, at the festival this year. And the festival's going to be screening your latest movie, Eagles of the Republic, tomorrow with a masterclass. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's an amazing movie, very powerful. And also we have producer and distributor Alexandre Mallet-Guy at Memento, and you've worked with Tarik for many years, and you're going to sort of share some of your experiences as well. So just to set the scene before we... and then the second part of the conversation, we're going to have Film Boutique founder, producer, and sales agent Jean-Christophe Simon, who's going to talk about his work on The Seed of the Sacred Fig by Mohammad Rasoulof, and also There Is No Evil, which you also worked on, so how he's navigated working with Mohammad on that in the face of pressure from the Iranian authorities. And then finally, last but not least, Margot, Hervée, who's head of sales at Totem Films. And you're going to be talking about your experiences working with My Favorite Cake, with Maryam, Moqadam, and Behtash, Sanaeeha. And that was a very interesting case when they couldn't come to Berlin. So we're going to discuss about how you also navigated that too. So before we kick off the discussion, let's have a look at the international trailer for Eagles of the Republic, just to sort of set the scene a bit.
مدام سوزان، أستاذ جورج فهمي.
هاي.
انتي طالعة ممثلة زي بابا؟
قصدي ده مش بابا. احنا بس اصحاب.
Wonderful.
عندنا عرض من البحر، عايزينك تعمل دور نمبر 1.
انا ما بشتغلش مع الاجازه.
دي ناس ما حدش ينفع يقول لها لا.
هي الحكايه بالظبط. ابنك ده المفروض تقول له خد بالك.
خدت القرار السليم.
دول هتدوني بابني يا فوزي.
على فكرة احنا كلنا فخورين انك قدرت تجسد روح الشخص اللي كلنا بنقدره.
وسيلة الدفاع وحرمه.
ممنوع الاقتراب أو التصوير واملأ غمام.
انت هنا وسط اصحابك، احنا الدرع اللي بيحمي البلد بجد. احنا وصول الجمهورية.
كاليجولا عارف انك بتنط على مراته؟
الأعداء في كل مكان.
انت ما بتبطلش تمثيل ابدا؟
محتاجين مساعدتك يا استاذ جورج.
دول عايزين تحط ميكروفون. انا مش هقدر اشوفك. حياتك في خطر.
بلد في حالة طوارئ.
لا والله طبعا.
Powerful stuff. When I can remember the other scenes that are around it, and I just kind of makes me go, oh. So this is the final film in a trilogy, the Cairo Trilogy. So we've got the Nile Hotel Incident and the Cairo Conspiracy, and then this film. And it's a film that you've been making, a trilogy that you've been making across a decade, starting with the Nile Hotel Incident. Can you just explain a little bit that film, because that film you started making before al-Sisi came to power, and you were planning to shoot that in Egypt. So can you just explain a little bit what happened with that film?
Yeah, so, hello, by the way. It feels like it's a decade ago and a different world that, when I wrote the Nile Hilton incident, Mubarak was still in power. And in Egypt, there was no way nothing in sight that would even suggest that there would be a revolution. I mean, we did not expect that at all. We even had a saying in Egypt like, you know, let's meet tomorrow unless there is a revolution, ha ha ha, you know. It was like a joke. I mean, that would not be possible. So the inspiration to the Nile Hilton incident came from this real murder of a Lebanese singer. And very fast after this, this Egyptian policeman was arrested for the murder. And he had recorded a very famous Egyptian magnate who's sort of the Egyptian version of Donald Trump. He had built, he built houses, and he had built a city in Cairo called Madinati, which means my city. There's a huge ego, this guy. And he had killed his mistress because she had left him for someone younger than him, and he couldn't take that. So, and he was very close friends with Hosni Mubarak. He was close inside of that circle of oligarchs, basically, who own Egypt. So anyway, so when the trial was going on, I mean, Egyptians were shocked to see him put to trial. This is 2009. I was sort of inspired and thought, what if I tell a story? I wasn't thinking of it in political terms. I was thinking that if I do a political thriller inspired by this event, and I was like, I can never shoot it in Egypt. I realized that. And I ended, the last act of it was, I didn't know how to end it, so I wrote sort of a revolution, a very bad revolution, because I couldn't imagine it. And then I was thinking, I can't make this film. Where do I make it? And then 2011, the revolution happens. And like everyone, all Egyptians were sort of swept up in this. It was such a big moment. It was like the Berlin Wall was falling, right? There was this hope and this idea of freedom coming. And all of a sudden, I started thinking about my script, and that I actually foresaw the revolution in some weird way. So I rewrote the script, and then we started to plan to shoot it in Egypt. And we had a whole Egyptian crew, we have casted the whole film, and just 1 week before we were going to start shooting, we were at the embassy on a lunch, invited to the Swedish embassy in Cairo, and all of a sudden my producer's phone call, she got the phone call, and she just went over to me. There were a few Swedish journalists at this lunch, so she couldn't speak openly. She just said to me, Tarik, we have to leave. And I said, leave the lunch? And she said, no, we have to leave the country now. And I said, but wait, calm down, calm down. I was like, you know, don't overreact. She said, no, but, and then we went back to the hotel, and the Egyptian producer, who's one of Egypt's biggest producers, he was the co-producer on the film. He was waiting there, and he was like pale in the face, and he said, state security was waiting for me at the Interior Ministry, and they said, Tarik have 1 week to leave the country with his crew. After that, we can't protect him, meaning they will do something, right? So it was very shocking. So I gathered the whole crew, and I said to them, like, listen, I have bad news. We're not going to shoot this film. We are here. We're going to have to leave. But we cannot let these people decide what films we make. So the question, we have to move to Casablanca. But the question is, if you are, if we're going to make this film, you're going to have to cancel Christmas, basically, which is a big deal in Europe, you know, for the European crew, of course. But all of them just said, fuck Christmas. And I said, okay, now it means that we are going to make the film somehow. And then I said to them, the other thing that's important now when we leave and we go to Morocco is we can never use this as an excuse to make a bad film, because the audience don't care. I mean, there is no disclaimer saying in the beginning, like, this was very difficult to make, that's why it's not good, you know. the audience don't care about that, you know. So I knew that, okay, we have to make the same film we said we were going to make. And they all agreed to that, even though some people during the production sometimes said, but we were thrown out of Egypt. I said, yes, but remember the rule. Yes. We cannot talk about that. So anyway, I had set, and I had said to myself, this is the last film I'm going to make. And I also had a strong feeling that nobody would care about this film. And so it was a shock to me then that the film, when it was first, there was a shock that was accepted to Sundance. It was the first shock. I was like, what? They care about this very... For me, it was sort of, yes, it was specific in that it's a genre film, and it takes place in Cairo, and it deals with things I'm interested in, very interested in. But I was like, is the rest of the world, do they care about this subject? And then I was so sure I was not going to win Sundance. I was so sure that I left the festival. I went back to Los Angeles, and they called me on the night before the award show and said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Los Angeles. They're like, but you have to come back. You're winning tomorrow the prize of the... I said, what prize? I said, the main prize. I said, okay, shit. And it was my birthday. Okay. So it was a good birthday present. So I went back. But then, just to say that what then happened was that Alexandre bought the film in Berlin. Yes.
I missed the film in Sundance, so I went to see it in Berlin. Yeah. After I won the prize.
Yeah. So you were like, okay, it won a prize. I'll look at it.
No, but there are so many films in Sundance, and
you're forgiven.
No, the priority go to the American films in Sundance, so you don't go to see the international competitions that much. So I missed it in Sundance. I went to see it in Berlin, and I bought it in there. Yeah.
And it was a unique situation because this is how, and let me just give you a little context. Growing up Arab in Europe, you know, it's a privilege, of course. You live in Europe, blah blah blah. You know, it's great, but there's also a problem because you grow up the bad guy. You know, you are fed every day the idea that you are crazy, that you're a radical, that you are, you know, that there's so much blatant open racism. So a lot of people with my background, they become very angry, you know. And I have been also very angry, you know, of that. But then at one point, I felt like it's not constructive. I don't feel like I want to tell stories where I don't care about this fact. I want to sort of, it was very healing to me, the fact that I went to Paris to meet Alexandre, and he said to me, it was the first time a distributor had said, he said, you know, Tarik, you made an amazing film, and I have this big marketing campaign idea for it. And if we don't reach 200,000 admission on this film, it's my fault. And I was like, are you sure about this? Are you sure about this proposal that people will actually go and buy tickets for this film? So it was a big thing for me to because I had not compromised. And that was the most important thing. I had not tried to make a film for Europeans at all. Not at 1 second did I think, do they accept this or do they understand this? Nothing. And still it had this sort of impact, which was incredible. Yeah.
How many tickets did you sell in the end?
It did the 400,000 admissions.
Amazing. Yeah. So then you decided you came on board as a producer for the next movie.
Producer, because it was a Swedish main production.
Yeah.
And we were come on board as a French minority co-producer.
So the next film, you shot the first film in Casablanca, and I remember meeting you. No, I didn't meet. I met you. No, so Cairo Conspiracy. Where did you shoot that film?
In Istanbul.
In Istanbul. So yes. What happened?
What happened then? Yeah, what happened was that I worked in Hollywood for a few years. But we were always in contact, and Alexandre said to me, you know, Tarik, when are you going to make your next film? that is your film. And I was writing Cairo Conspiracy or Boy from Heaven, but I was thinking that I was going to write it as a novel. Because at the time I had a problem with directing. I felt directing was a job, whereas writing is my passion. So when I had finished the script of Boy from Heaven, I said at one point there was a particular scene in Boy from Heaven, because I knew it was a very risky film to make, because the difference is if you make the Egyptian government upset, that's not good at all, okay? But if you make the Islamic world upset, that's 1 billion people, you know? And if you think, I will say, this comes as big news in Europe, but like 95% of all Muslims are just normal people who want what's best for their children, and just normal people who want to have a future, you know, who think about the things we think about, exactly the same. But if you think that even 0.5% of this population are psychopaths, you know, it's a lot when it's 1 billion people, you know. So you have these psychopaths, if you make them angry, and especially if a political force is using it to fuel it. So I was really, really worried about that aspect. And then I also was that I was like, who is going to care about these these men in pajamas and beards who are conspiring around religious issues? Is anybody going to care about that? You know? And then I sent the script. I remember even I was at the playland with my children when Alexandre had called me and he had read the script. And you were like, it's really good. Let's make it, you know? And I was like, okay, wow, okay. And we were, so we started to plan that film. And at one point we were planning to build Al-Azhar in Morocco, but it was just impossible in terms of the budget. So we started to think about if we could shoot it in Istanbul instead, because you need to have the kind of mosques. Al-Azhar is a huge mosque, you know, and the only, you know, there were basically 2 places that had the same impressive architecture. It would be Iran or Turkey.
So moving on to the next film, just because I know we've got to get a lot in. So I think I interviewed you very briefly on the red carpet in Marrakesh in 2003. Which year did you go? 2003.
I've gone twice, I think. I went with Boy from Heaven.
Yeah, and then it was the next one.
Yeah, and the one when I was on
the jury, yeah. And you were planning to shoot. So what happened there? Because this is also a very interesting issue in that when you're making your movies, you've got support from Europe, but then the region sometimes. I mean, Egypt is very, very powerful, so that becomes complicated. So you were going to shoot in Morocco.
Yes.
So what happened?
Yeah. So when I wrote this last film, Eagles of the Republic, I'm not that naive. I knew that this film is very sensitive. I'm touching something that's more sensitive than religion, which is the army, you know? And to understand in Egypt, like the army, first of all, it's one of the 10 biggest armies in the world. So that's one thing. Then the army has 30% of the country's economy that it's running through this company called the United. So, and Egypt is a real power player in the region in the sense that it's the Hollywood of the Middle East. And Morocco, you know, because I had been on the jury, I had met the king, I had done all the things, you know. They said, we'd love to have you, we can't wait for you to come back to shoot, all that stuff. And then the script, it got stuck in this process. And then we heard that the script went to the Interior Ministry, which is not a good sign. You know, normally it stays with the film commission. You know, and then
And it was only 1 month before the shooting. So
yeah,
it was quite late.
we had done all the recce, everything, and then came the call. You don't want that. You have to leave. You have to leave again, and at that point I got really scared, I must say, because if the Morocco is this place where you can almost do anything, right? But I was like, am I crossing a line now, a red line that I can't walk back from? Because the Egyptian army, again, they are very powerful. And they are also, you have to understand that Al-Sisi is the favorite dictator of the West, you know? He's their favorite dictator. He's really, you know, he gets awards all over. You know, he gets the award in France, the Cross, and he got the Elephant Order in Denmark. You know, and Donald Trump loves him. You know, and so it's a problem. You know, so sometimes I even get jealous of my Iranian friends because everyone hates Iran, you know. So you're popular when you make films that criticize Iran, but when you criticized and you have to understand the difference between the dictatorships. In Egypt, you can go and have a nice, you know, frappuccino at Starbucks and go to the IMAX theater and watch a Marvel movie. But if you dare to criticize even that the road is broken, you get picked up in the middle of the night and your parents don't dare to ask the questions. So it's because the capitalistic system works in Egypt, the shopping malls are there, the H&M and the Ikeas and all that. It's fine, right? Just shut up and go on with your lives. And that is, of course, problematic, you know. So what happened was I left and I went to Turkey to shoot it again, which was very risky because Al-Sisi had become friend with Erdogan. They had been in a fight for 5 years, but all of a sudden you know, Erdogan invited him to Ankara at the same time as we were shooting, and I was like, oh my God, this is not good for us at all, you know. It's like we're all, you know, and yeah, so I think it's a miracle that the film was made, and that I know it's going to sound vulgar, this thing that I say now, but the film is quite big on a sort of and in itself, like, it's almost like this ambitious sort of like, almost like, I am very close friend with Ali Abbasi, you know, and I told you, you know, that when I had done Cairo Conspiracy and he had done Holy Spider, I was invited to Tehran and he was invited to Cairo, you know, which is absurd. It tells you everything you need to know about the world. But I always joke with him that he is Pasolini and I'm Ron Howard, you know. I am sort of I make these big films, right, with like, and I think it's a political thing in itself, that these films are like, it's like Al-Sisi's projects, these white elephant projects, building a new Cairo on the other side of the Nile, you know, it's that, like, you know, I make these big films that you sort of can't ignore. To ignore it is also a statement, almost.
But I wanted to add, I mean, I've just come back from sort of Doha, Marrakesh, Red Sea. Your film wasn't there. So, I mean, I guess it has a bigger impact as well. I mean, I know, okay, there's quite a lot of sexual content in there, or not particularly from a Western audience point of view, but do you think your films will ever show in that region?
You know, first of all, I dream of that. That is my main purpose, is to one day screen in an Egyptian cinema, because the Egyptian cinema is a very special place. The audience is so engaged in films. You know, they scream at the screen, you know, he's behind you. No, don't go there. You know, it's that kind of interaction. So I would love that. I would love to experience that with one of my films. And even, you know, people are super involved as an audience. I must say that it is very painful to see, especially with this initiative with Hollywood, and everyone is going to the Red Sea, everyone is going to Doha, to these places, you know. These places, I mean, they are not promoting art and democracy and freedom. That's not what they do. You know, they are very much places of absolute repression. So I mean, Morocco is special. It has a special place in North Africa. I understand that they are nervous because there is a revolution brewing among the Gen Zs, and they don't want anything to ignite that, you know. And of course, they also have an army who is in control of things, who are also friends. The army generals are friends with the Egyptian army generals who are running these countries, you know. But I think that, I mean, I was dreaming, and it was a little naive, I'm dreaming of having a distribution in Saudi Arabia. And why is because I think that even to sort of challenge, I was sort of hoping, because they, you know, it's a kingdom, it's a bit different than Egypt, but apparently they are not risking anything.
But do you, because I wanted to bring you, Alexandre, into this when we were talking before. This is like, it's not problematic, but I mean, at the moment, all of the sort of the Middle East funding is becoming more and more important. Like, you know, what they're trying to do is also interesting in terms of helping independent Arab film. But I guess you couldn't tap into any of those funds for the film.
Yeah, we were quite naive at the beginning and thought that we could get some money from Doha, for example, from the Doha Film Institute or from the Red Sea Film Festival. But of course, I mean, the script was too sensitive, and we couldn't find this money there. And it's quite a big budget. It's like 9 million euros, so it's in Arabic language. So this is quite challenging. I mean, to raise this kind of money from on a film that is in a language like Arabic, without any money from the region. So fortunately, I mean, the Scandinavian system is quite supportive, and Tarik got a lot of money from Sweden and Finland and Denmark, and we got some money also from France, 30% of the budget. So we managed to raise this big budget within Europe, but of course it would have been much much easier to get some money from the Arabic world, and it wasn't possible on this one.
How did you get the French money? Because the CNC is in Arabic, so
there's a support at the CNC for foreign language film, and we got money from Arte, we got money from the Paris region. We did some. We also got money, CNC, Paris region, CNC, Canal Plus, of course, and that's it. But it's 3 million euros in total.
Okay. I think I'd just bring Jean-Christophe and Margot in as well. And I wanted to ask you about the cast, but maybe we can do that in the bigger conversation. So, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So Jean-Christophe, I wanted to talk to you a bit about your work with Mohammad Rasoulof. You didn't do Manuscripts Don't Burn, but you did do There Is No Evil, and also the sacred. Sorry, my notes. I'm looking at my notes.
The Seal of the Sacred.
Yes, sorry, yes. So how did you first connect with him?
Well, actually, the story is pretty close to the story of Tarik and Alexandre, because we met with Mohammad when he actually sent us a film for There Is No Evil. So at the time, it was really we are producing, but we are mostly a sales company, international distributor. And so we watched the movie. We found it really strong, and we started a collaboration in a very strange way for two reasons. First one is Mohammad was not speaking English, so we are always communicating with the translator. It's changing now, but it has been for years. And the second thing was that Mohammad was in Iran, at the time only without passport, so he could not leave Iran, and he was already threatened to be sent to jail. So we started this collaboration with a filmmaker we never met. If I might maybe start from the ending point, we worked after on the Seal of the Sacred Feet, but I met Mohammad for the first time ever the day before the screening. And we were working together for 7 years. maybe we'll get into that with a specific thing, because you have this incredible connection where you talk every day. We had to make him escape, to be part of the story, to make him escape Iran. Same for the cast, some people of the cast. So it was an involvement which goes far beyond anything I would have expected when we started to work together. And just a tiny thing, because we had a nice conversation with Tarik before, and we were talking with the fact that Mohammad never considers himself as he considers himself as an artist, and that somehow he became politically engaged just because when you make a film in Iran, you have to speak about something, and politics is everywhere. So he really often considers that he became the creator that they made him becoming. And I would say it's a bit the same for us, where, I mean, you said it's simple to hate Iran. Of course, when you have the Western culture and so on, it's one of the country where you have things to criticize. But at the end of the day, this collaboration starts really this way. You have a connection, and after that, you start to be involved in this fight, which is commercial, artistic, and political.
That's what I wanted to. I mean, it's also a question for Margot. But you're sales agents, so I mean, obviously you're doing world cinema. So a lot of the films that you look after do talk about political issues in the countries of the directors. But I mean, when you took on this film, did you realise that it was going to be, you'd have so much more that you had to do as a sales agent in terms of helping the film and helping him?
Well, when you start working with Iran and filmmakers, you know that it will not be a classic work, if I might say. After that, I have to confess that we strangely do more and more politics, and we start to have problems for 1/3 of the films we work with all directions, with Russians, we work with Agnieszka Holland for France, and for the Green Border. Green Border, I could never have expected to have such a blast from the far right in Poland, which is supposedly a European country, where the film was presented in Venice, and the film became with 1 star on IMDb on one night with 12,000 votes. And we had to block our social media for 2 days because we started to just answer in a clever way to messages and deleted what was prohibited. But the problem is as soon as you are threatened to be, you name it, a Nazi, anti-Semitic, working for Putin, and so on. I mean, at some point you have to tackle the issue and try to do your best, even if it's not the classical work of a distributor.
Did you have to get lawyers and people in to help you at all? This has just occurred to me as we're talking now. Like
no, for
advisors.
Agnieszka Holland, we did something which was pretty fun, I have to say, because the far right was so strongly against the film. It became a real topic because the film was working in theaters, and we managed to organize a screening in the Vatican because the film was supportive refugees. And that was a mess, because from the mindset from the far right in Poland to have a screening in the Vatican was just something where they could not get what was going on. And Agnieszka was really enjoyed that.
So Margot, I wanted to talk to you about your work on A Favourite Cake. So can you Totem had worked with the filmmakers before. Can you just talk us through a little bit about the company's involvement with them?
Yes, so when I joined Totem, it was, I think the shooting of My Favorite Cake was done already, but we came on board at script stage because we worked on Ballad of a White Cat before. And when I joined, it was already, time to discuss the edit, so we were working on that. And then through to the world premiere in Berlin, it was a really a close collaboration with the filmmakers, and like you said, being in constant contact with them, and I think it also accelerated. In the case of Maryam and Behtash, when they were raided during the editing of their film, so like 10 security agents came to their house and stole their hard drives and their computers, and luckily they had sent the project to Etienne, their French producer. 2 weeks before the raid, so the film was saved, but otherwise it would have been lost. And so following that, really problems arose because of what the government found on their hard drives and computers. And the interrogation started, and yes, so we were trying to be there for them as much as possible.
Because you'd come from Mubi before, and had you ever had like that kind of experience on a film to be that involved with the directors?
No, I mean, it was a very different job. It was in sales. I was doing acquisitions, and no, nothing like that.
So, I mean, at the beginning, we all thought that they would be able to come to Berlin because they'd come to Berlin for their previous The Ballad of a White Cow. Yeah. So, what point did you realise that because we were all holding out hope that it might change because the cast came. So, what point did you sort of realise, oh, this isn't going to happen?
I think we were really hoping that they would be able to come, but as I said, the problems arose after they were raided, and by that point, at that time, then they didn't have their passports. They couldn't travel. So really, we were hoping that they would get maybe their passports back, so they would be able to join us in Berlin. And that's one of the main reason also why we didn't communicate on the film prior to the world premiere and about their situation, because we were hoping to, maybe, I don't know, lay low. It was also, of course, their decision as well. Like, it's their life at stake. So we discussed and decided to opt for that because. Hoping that maybe it would calm down and they would be able to come. And of course, and then they didn't.
Then you did go to the press, and also, I mean, Jean-Christophe, not go to the press, but it came out that they weren't coming, so we all wrote stories afterwards.
Yes. At the time of the world premiere, of course, it was a big thing that they were not able to attend. But other than that, I think, it was later on, actually months after that, again, there was a lot of awareness in the press because Maryam, who's half Swedish, wanted to visit her family in Sweden, and it was at the time of the Swedish release as well. And just before, they had their passports back, so it was possibly the end of their travel ban. And so they went to the airport, and as they were at the airport, they took the passports back after they had booked everything, and so it was a really such a traumatic moment for Maryam, for Behtash as well, but Maryam, and mental, abuse, for them. It's really horrible. And at that time, then we really there was a strategy to communicate around that, both on an international level. So we came to the trades, notably, to raise awareness about this situation, and then also going to our international distributors. And the response was really amazing. They supported and went to their local press agencies. They also even some offered to go to their foreign offices. So everyone was really helpful with that.
But it's continued for them because they're still stuck there, not under house arrest, and then they're facing charges for sort of trumped-up charges against them. And it's hard to keep getting people to write stories. It's hard. How do you keep the pressure on? And I mean, or do you, as a sales agent, at a certain point let go? But you can't, because it's a human story as well. It's a connection. So
it's not a question of letting go. No, not at all. No, I guess we. It was this year, so the first international press awareness that I mentioned, that was during the fall of 24, so a few months after the world premiere. But the latest campaign that we ran was earlier this year when they had their sentence. And also, I have to mention also Arizona, the French distributor, did an amazing campaign around their release in February, and they launched a petition that got nearly 2,000 signatures to around the time of the sentence to clear them of all charges. And again, at that time, both internationally, the international press and local press also were really supportive. And before this panel, I talked with Maryam and Behtash, and really they stressed how this international support has helped them. Helped in the sense that their sentence could have been way worse, and today they could be in prison. They are not. They have this suspended sentence, like we talked earlier, that they could go to prison at any time. They're at home, but yes, they can go anytime. It's like a Damocles sword over their head, and but it could have been worse. That's what they said.
Have to keep talking about them and find
absolutely. It's super important, especially because in their case, specifically, they have made an appeal, and they will soon have a new hearing at the highest court. So yeah, it's absolutely still very, very important to talk about it.
So Jean-Christophe, going back to Mohammad and the seed of the sacred fake. So how did you, without going into the nuts and bolts that you don't want to talk about, no, but you're trying to raise money for that film. So how do you do that? Because you don't want, because quite often, how do people raise money? They do an announcement, and it's out. So how did you do that?
So the story is we were already talking with Mohammad about a new film after There Is No Evil before he got arrested. Same situation, because you have a prison sentence, but they are never executing it, so you're supposed not to do anything wrong. Otherwise, they come and pick you up. What happened? Because Mohammad has been sent to prison for. So it was supposed to be 2 years, but in the end it was only, if I might say, sorry for that, only 8 months. And the irony is that he got released because of women life freedom movement, because they arrested so many people that the prison was full, so at some point you had to empty it. And that was the beginning of the inspiration of Mohammad, because he could hear what was going on outside of the prison in Evin, which is the same prison where Jafar Panahi, working with Alexandre, was in prison at the same time. And so when he got released, he got inspired, by stories that he heard about people arrested, youngsters. And so when he came out, he actually gave me a call with Manny Tigner, his right arm, and one of the German producer. And so he called and said, I would like to make this movie, but I only have 9 months because there is an appeal. I know it might look strange, but still there is the justice system in Iran. So when you appeal, you know more or less the time it will take to have an answer and so on. And so he was sure he would be sent again to prison. And so we started to. So the question was very quick. It was really, I think it was a September call. It was like, can we get some money? Can we go and shoot? And we were part of this to launch as soon as possible. I think in total, honestly speaking, everyone, there were not more than 30 people knowing about the existence of the project. From my side, only 5. And really, people I know. Side story, the cast of the film was made in a very specific way because it was only people that spoke loud on social media against the state or without the veil or something like that, and they were doing casting without knowing who was the filmmaker. So they could only guess. So actually, some of them were, Tarik, for example, said she was so happy when she learned it was Rasoulof afterwards.
But what point did she learn it?
The thing is you had to be totally safe. So it's a film which is made with, I think, all in all on set, it's like 16 people, 17.
But they knew that he was the person. I mean, you said he wasn't on set, so
no, they knew once they have been selected after.
Okay.
And there was always this paranoia during the shoot that anyone from the team was. Could be working for the state. Maybe I will not share it here if we have a drink later, but we have hilarious stories about the thing when you start to look at the others, a bit like in The Thing of Carpenter, and you always think that the other one could be working for the state because he did this or this.
That's another film.
Yeah. And no, and so actually we launched the movie. So it's a bit different from what we were mentioning, because Mohammad is a filmmaker that will make a film. So at the end of the day, it's important to have money to make it, because it's not for free to make a film, but you know that he will do it because it's inside him, and it's possible to make a film with a very low budget in case you don't secure all your financing. So here we actually had support from different people, from Arte, from the CNC, and other sources, where we could guarantee a full confidentiality on the support. So it was not out. And you were talking about the press. When the film has been announced in Cannes for the Seed of the Sacred Fig, it's a film which has been announced just with the filmmaker. So actually in the catalogue you had no cast and crew, you had nothing, which was a way to try to protect the people, to make them able to leave the country to attend the premiere if they wanted to. Some of them really escaped the country, some just took a flight knowing they would be interrogated on the way back. And,
how many did people go? People went back to the cast. That was another question I wanted to bring up.
No, the big thing is like the three youngsters, so the three young girl leads in the film. We helped them to escape, actually. So they left Iran and cannot come back. It was after it's really a conversation for the crew. Most of them are still living in Iran. And for the cast, it's the two parents in the film didn't want to leave. I mean, they had their life in Iran and so, but there were already faces of contest, let's say, in Iran. So somehow it was just more. Sorry, because it's absurd to say that, especially when you don't live this yourself. But just one problem additional. I want to highlight one thing which I think is very important. It might be strange when we speak from our perspective here in this one place in a nice film festival, but people know what they are doing. So the people are taking their own risk. And it's something which is sometimes shocking because we think, how do they do? But it's really people do know what they are doing.
That's why I wanted to bring you into because on Eagles of the Republic, just like talk a little bit about the cast, because some are people who are known to be, again, are not liked by the regime, and then some people still live there. So how did you deal with that?
No, it's exactly what you say. I mean, first of all, people know what they're doing. They know exactly what they are doing. And there are two versions in Egypt, because in Egypt, there's other circumstances. Because it's a favored dictatorship for the West, you can leave Egypt if you get the visa. So the problem is to get the visa to Europe, right? If you get the visa, you can leave. It's when you come back, they talk about the list at the airport. That's when you get arrested. So one thing that happened, and this is sort of a secret, but when I write my scripts, in the beginning of the process, all the names are real names of people. So it's based on real people. So with this film, it was taking place in the film industry. So every director and producer and actor was real people in the Egyptian film industry. And then I changed the names and I mask it enough so they don't know who is who. So at one point, there is a character, Rula Haddad, who's this Lebanese actress who get pressured. And she is based on a big Egyptian movie star who is also a foreigner. And at one point, I had her real name in the script, right? At one point, I get contacted by her. And she said, I would like to make a Zoom with you. She's in Cairo. And she's one of Egypt's 5 biggest stars. So she says, I want to be in your film. I heard a rumor that you're making a film. And I was like, oh my God, you are in my film. You are in my script as a very important character. And I said, but you can't do it. I said to her, you cannot do it. You will lose your whole career. You will be canceled. You'll probably be arrested. You can't do it. And she said, I'm planning on leaving. I can't stand it anymore. And just one thing is that just a week before that, I had seen that she had posted this video where she sort of talks about Al-Sisi as a big hero and how fantastic he is, because they are all forced to do that, in order to. It's not enough to just not say anything. You have to say that you love him. Otherwise, you're not a patriot. you don't love your country, you know, maybe you shouldn't work so much, you know. So anyway, I said to her, really, I don't think you should do this film, honestly. You have this amazing career in Egypt, and Europe is not such a nice place for people with Arabic names. I mean, there are things happening in Europe. I'm not sure you have, and she has also a French passport, so I'm just saying, like, your career in Egypt is amazing, you know. And then a week later, she said her husband and kids had said, we want to stay, you know. But it just tells you, I mean, we were very nervous in Cannes because some of the big names in the film are living in Egypt. So when they were going back, you know, we were worried about, but they have made it back, and they are okay this far.
And how important? I mean, this is an obvious answer to this, but how important are getting these selected to like a big festival like Cannes or Berlin? Does that offer? Do you think that offers Maryam and Behtash or Mohammad a certain level of protection?
If I might answer here, we made the film precisely with this timing because Cannes for Mohammad was the biggest protection. It was even more for the cast and crew. It's strange, and things are going so quickly now in Iran, of course, in the last year, but last 2 years. But they still didn't like when you talk badly about the country. So strangely, even if from our perspective it's strange, they don't like when you have a filmmaker speaking loud and so on. So Mohammad really wanted to target Cannes to be protected and the cast and crew.
It's exactly that. You know, when I won the prize for the script in Cannes for Boy from Heaven or Cairo Conspiracy, the next day there is the big paper in Egypt, El Gomoreya, which means the Republic, which is the state-owned magazine, had me on the front page with the award saying Egyptian wins in Cannes. So it's the patriotism is toppling the film will never be shown in Egypt. It will not, and I will be arrested if I go back, but we will take the opportunity to make patriotic points. So it does mean a lot, you know.
I mean, also I just wanted to go on, sorry.
Yeah, it's like for Banai. I mean, when he got the Palme d'Or in Cannes, then he was the closing ceremony, and I asked him, "Are you sure you want to come back to him?" Because he was planning to fly back to Tehran the day after. And he said, "No problem. And now that I have the Palme d'Or, I feel like I'm protected." And then he went back to Iran. There was no problem. He has been living there for 2 months, and left for the festival circuit, and now he has been sentenced to jail.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Can he go back now? Is that they've renewed that sentence, the one that was announced just on the eve of the Gothams?
Yeah, he's still planning to go back to Iran. I mean, not now because he's in
the award season.
For the awards, but after the Oscar ceremony, he's planning to go back to Iran and do this sentence.
And it's a bit the same for Ashghar Vahadi with the Oscars as well, no?
Yeah, I think that the Oscars and the awards in Cannes are protecting him in a way. But the Farhadi situation is different because Ashghar Vahadi's films are not as frontal as Panay or Rasoulov's film. I mean, the contest is behind the lines and not too frontal.
But that's why it's so hard with what's happened to Maryam and Behtash, because their movie is a very sweet movie. It's like it's not. I think she just doesn't wear a headscarf. I mean, it's like it's like not.
Their film is highly subversive.
I know,
but yes, maybe it doesn't look that way because, especially for foreign audiences, we know what happens in the film is pretty normal. You know, of having this woman and man together in a car, and then together in their house, and sharing a meal, drinking alcohol, then listening to music. But all of that is not allowed. So yes, so it is very subversive and political, but in it's true in My Favorite Cake. It's done in a very sweet way. It's a love story between two elderly people, and we don't see that a lot. So it's lovely. Yeah.
So sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say it's not all lovely, of course. We know the film.
But no, but I was just saying, but it's a little bit more in the vein of Farhadi, sort of not. It's not. For me, it feels like a softer. They're not doing anything sort of. It's not like a sort of a really political. They're not making any political statements. It's kind of just a couple, together, and it's the absurdity of the fact that that's a problem is the point. It's kind of. Sorry.
No, just I think it's when you are in countries where you have big censorship issues, I think it's really a question of strategies for filmmakers. You have a part of the filmmakers, I think they can make the film inside the system and go as far as they can, tricking the rules, and you have the one who say, I don't want to play this game and I want to play against. Mohammad Rasoulof made 4 or 5 films which were in the system, if I might say, trying to push as much as he could, and at some point he thought it's impossible to even collaborate in this way. We had an interesting experience recently with, some years ago, with a film called Subtraction by Mania Hariri, filmmaker from Iran, which is the opposite way. I think he has to push as far as he can inside. And the only scene that was problematic was something a bit... It's a story of 2 couples having an affair, which is, as you can imagine, impossible to make in Iran, but they are doppelgangers, so you never know who is who in the film. And so the only scene which was problematic was the final shot, because you had 2 hands touching, and it was clear that it was the 2 opposite couples. So the only requirement not to be released in Iran was this shot, which is 2 hands. So it's...
Are there any questions from people here that want to ask that I haven't asked? It's a really thank you. It's a really nice, it's a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much. But I just wanted to ask for you, Tarik. So you've spent a decade looking at Al-Sisi, and one day maybe you'll meet him, maybe not, in another world. So are you going to carry on going down that line, or are you going to look at the political situation in Sweden, or what are you thinking?
No, for me, I must say exactly what was said before, that I never casted myself as a political filmmaker. That's not how I look at myself. I look at myself as foremost like an artist. So for me, I am not ready with Egypt at all. I don't think, it would be absurd. It's like saying to, say, a Swedish filmmaker that, did you have enough of Sweden? Like Egypt is a huge, huge country with so many stories that is waiting to be told in many different genres. And I am obsessed with it. I have an obsession with it. I also want to say that it can be as problematic to be reined in by the regime. I think that what is so impressive with what Farhadi have done is this balance act, because of course when he did A Hero and the Iranian government was trying to use that film, he had to sort of, you don't want to have them as your friend either, because let me tell you that after I had done Cairo Conspiracy, I was approached by Arab governments, not Egypt, but the powerful neighbors who wanted me to work for them and to make their films, So, that was very difficult to say no to, because, you all of a sudden you have these very powerful countries with a lot of money who say, we want you to tell our stories the way we want it, because we can see that you are good at what you do. And they even offered me at one point, I'm not going to say which country, but you can probably guess which one, said to me on a very high level, we'll talk to Al-Sisi, we'll explain to him that you are okay. And I was like, whoa, thank you. But I had to be very, very gentle and just moonwalk out of those conversations.
Was that after or before Eagles of the Republic? I don't see how anybody
Before.
can say... Yeah, exactly.
Before. No, I didn't get any calls after Eagles of the Republic. Except from the Israelis, actually, but that's a different story.
Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, I mean, I don't know if you have, any of you want to say anything before we close. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for sharing everything.
If I might say just a word a bit different, because we are talking about censorship, but we have a specific problem in Europe right now, which is not really the usual censorship we were talking here, which is the fact that the geo-blocking is at stake once again. And it's a kind of political censorship that we are facing, all of us, because it means technically that only the Nordic and the bigger countries will have films and nobody will care anymore about the smaller countries of Europe. So I think it's a fight we should tackle if we want to continue to have voices from all the countries of Europe. So it's a bit far from the topic, but still.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.